Hi, this is Pastor Judy Templeton with Deeper Conversations. I thank you for joining me again this week. And I had some questions from my message last week, or whenever we showed this, maybe a week or two ago, that people asked me to expound on. I don't know if I can, but let's kind of dig into it. And so one of the questions came out of Luke, and it's Luke 10, verse 19. And it says, I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the powers of the enemy, and nothing will harm you. And in the message I talked about trampling, and I thought it was interesting that he didn't say to push back or to be able to overcome, but he actually used the word trample, which means that we're to walk on it. And as I was giving the message last week, I had this impression that the things that we walk on, the poison that was meant to kill us, or the experiences or the hardships that were meant to destroy us, or even the plans of the enemy to destroy our life, when we walk on them, when they're under our feet, they become a path that we can walk over constantly. And I can use some of my history is that there are a lot of situations, and I'll use us losing our business and going bankrupt and losing everything. Well, who can believe that that would become a path that would lead to victory eventually? And you say, well, I don't know if the enemy made us lose the business. I don't know if God allowed it to go away. I could have a lot of different opinions about it. But what I do know is it created a path that I have used to be able to encourage people and prove, because of what God's done in my life, that God can rebuild our lives no matter how old you are. My husband was about 55 when we lost everything, and he told me that he was too old to start again, and that why even try? He became a little suicidal, a little really depressed, and I was in this standpoint of, as the good wife, trying to hold him up. So I wasn't going to feel anything. I was just there to not allow him to sink any further. And so I didn't deal with my stuff. I was dealing with trying to make the house and the hope and belief. But I was trying to take the place of God. And God, through this whole thing, it wasn't overnight. It wasn't a year or two. For us, it was 10, 12 years before we got our feet grounded on a firm financial stability. But every step became a path for me, a path that I knew that no matter what came against us, that God would lead us through it. And so the victory that God gives us, sometimes it's our own bad habits that God has to change, and we have to grow, and it can be poisonous to us, because the enemy says, oh, why not? Just, go ahead and use your credit card a little bit more. Buy that, you'll have a good job, no problem. But if you lose your job that week, you couldn't pay your bills, but no problem. I mean, the voices inside of us really encourages us to make some really dumb decisions. But that path, as God leads us across that path, and we walk into that victory, we're able to share not only what God has done in our lives, but also to know how faithful, as we submit ourselves to God, that He is to make provisions for us. And so when I was sharing the scripture with the church, I was just saying, God has a path for all of us. And that path is difficulties, victories, more victories, because those difficulties become the victory. Those things that were meant to kill us or destroy our relationship with God, He used those to build this path towards Him, and this path towards that goal He has for us, that prosperity. And so when I was sharing about the scripture, that was what I was envisioning, is that God can, as we submit to Him, build these paths of victory that we didn't even know was built until that next thing comes up in our life, that we go, oh, I've dealt with this before. I know what this one is. And it's like almost like we can just run across that one. The other part that I shared about the scripture is that the path that we walked and the paths that we have walked that can be a path for the next generation so that they can have victory. That we didn't start where our parents started. We started from where they started, not going through the same things, not having the same hardship. And you say, well, we did. Well, were you without electricity? I grew up when TV was just coming in, black and white. Now, now you got all these hundreds of channels. We were lucky if we had 2 channels, and then we were only allowed to watch it a couple times a week. You couldn't watch it every day. Kids are supposed to be outside. So we build these paths, some good and some not so good. But it has given the next generation all this amazing technology that has allowed society to move forward for good and for bad in ways that we couldn't imagine. And so every path, some of them maybe we weren't supposed to take, and some of them, man, we can tell the next generation, you don't have to start from scratch. And so when I looked at this scripture, I was just thinking about the things God has done in our lives. The things that the victories God has given us, those hard times that He's gotten us through, that those testimonies, just as they are in the Old Testament, of all the testimonies of all the amazing things God did and all the sometimes stupid mistakes they made, and yet God turned them around. Those paths that we go, oh, I'm not going to do that one. Or, oh, that's how God will help me. I can get into the Word. And so when I shared that, that was what I was thinking about. And so I hope this blessed you. I hope this challenges you to think back about the things God has brought you through. Those testimonies that maybe you don't share because maybe you made a mistake, but how wonderful they are to know that somebody else know that you made the mistake and how God brought you through. So I challenge you to look back and see those amazing paths that you have come through that may be wonderful to pass down to somebody hurting. So I want to bless you and thank you for joining me today. God bless. That's okay. I wanted to be able to breathe before you recorded me and get me in trouble again.
Okay, this time tell a joke.
A joke. This is a white piece of paper that comes. No, it was his feet.
Oh, his feet?
Da 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 da.